So there's actually more to lowering a car than just putting lowering springs or coilovers in it. Welcome to Garbage Car Garage. What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Garbage Car Garage. I'm Dave. We're back with the 2010 Subaru Forester, and today we're going to be finishing up the adjustments made when we lowered the vehicle. Now, we all know that I didn't get the vehicle as low as I intended it with the kit that I bought for it. That being said, we've just kind of melded the direction of the build, and we've got a couple new parts we're going to be throwing on it today. Whiteline is a premier manufacturer of aftermarket suspension parts. Now, what these parts are going to allow us to do is kind of dial in the suspension. So we've got Whiteline's roll adjustment kit. What this does is lower the center of gravity on the suspension components to allow it to handle better and to bring everything back into original factory spec by changing the angles in which the suspension sits at. So this Whiteline kit will contain 2 lower ball joints and 2 outer tie rod ends. In addition to that, since we are taking out the control arms, we've decided to throw in a set of Whiteline lower control arm bushings for the front. What these are going to do is step it up the suspension in the front and allow us to have better handling, push through corners, and really dial the suspension completely in for this vehicle. So let's get the Forester up on the hoist, start stripping the old suspension out of it, and hopefully this stuff fits well.
This shit is hot.
Protect Positive Squad.
Drop this shit, bitch.
First thing you have to do is loosen up that jam nut. That jam nut is basically what retains the tie rod in, and we've got the top nut there that retains the tie rod to the knuckle. So we're going to want to loosen the jam nut. This is usually a 21 mil. It'll be pretty tight on there, so we'll loosen that off. That'll allow us to spin the tie rod off directly. Now, the upper nut on the tie rod end is usually retained in this vehicle with a cotter pin, but it is a complete ball of rust, so we're not even going to bother attempting to remove the cotter pin. We're just going to hammer a socket on it and give her some love and spin her right off there. Now, if we weren't saving the tie rod, we wouldn't hammer it, but in this case, we're not reusing it, so we can just hit down and hammer that tie rod off. Now that we've got it off, it should just spin right off of the outer tie rod end, and we do not want to strike the knuckle if possible. That could bend the steering knuckle. So we'll spin this tie rod off, and that's it. So you've got the old tie rod next to the new tie rod. Now this is the new tie rod that comes in the center roll adjustment kit. You can see how that tie rod is slightly differently angled. Now we're going to anti-seize up the inner tie rod to make sure it doesn't seize on later on. Spin the tie rod on, get it back in the knuckle. Reinstall the supplied new cage nut. We'll get that tightened up. Not too much force on it. And we'll slide in a new cotter pin. That cotter pin will ensure that the cage nut doesn't come loose while driving, and we won't have any issues of losing our tie rod end, which is a terrifying experience as you will lose steering. So we'll get the cotter pin installed, we'll get it bent over the edges, and after that's all said and done, we'll get that jam nut tightened up, and this side is as good as installed. Next thing we'll need to do after any tie rod installation is get this over for alignment, but we'll worry about that once we've got the rest of the front end components installed. Got the vehicle lifted up. We're going to remove the lower control arm. Generally, if you're just replacing the ball joint, all you've got to do is remove the lower cotter pin, pull it down, and the ball joint is actually in the knuckle on this. But since we want to change this rear control arm bushing, we're going to have to remove the entire control arm to do it on the ground. So we'll start with that ball joint. Going to get that cotter pin removed, pull that out, and that'll allow the control arm to pivot. The other thing we're going to have to do is remove the sway bar end link, because that is going to be something that will be in our way and will not allow us to remove the control arm. I don't have another replacement one, so I'm hoping it just comes out nicely. Again, because I'm not going to be reusing the ball joint, I can get through with not having to save the cotter pin, but because this cotter pin is a lot better greased than the one we had up top, we are going to try to remove it at least somewhat properly. No, it's rotten too. The same as up top. We're going to cut off our excess. Get our socket on it. And there you have it. Lower ball joint nut removed. So the rear control arm bushing, we have a 17 mil holding nut on the back and an 18 on the front. Nut off. But move the bolt. So the last bolts we had, plate that retains the last control arm bushing. These are all 19s again. Just need to wrestle this down a little bit. So this still will be retained by the ball joint held in the knuckle. But we can manipulate the rest of the control arm out. Again, we could smash on the side of the control arm, but we definitely do not want to do this as we will be reusing this control arm. So we're going to use a proper ball joint removing fork. So this is a tie rod ball joint puller. Basically, the center rod gets tightened, these grip on the side, and it pulls down on the arm while pushing up on the threaded portion and doesn't do any damage to anything. Give this a crack, or the control arm because it will fall. Or nothing will happen, but it explodes. Wonderful. Everything must fight me always. So this control arm is not even on either side, making this extremely painful. Step 2, smack the crap out of it. All right, that's not gonna work. Gonna move to the heavy artillery. We have upgraded to air hammer. Don't do this if you wanna reuse the ball joint. I do not care, and I am frustrated and it's hot. So air hammer goes. Control arm removed, air hammer stuck. Ball joint destroyed, but it doesn't matter. Move the pinch bolt for the ball joint, another 14 mil. Gonna try and open the spindle up just a little bit. The slide hammer vice grips have entered the chat, or whatever you kids say nowadays. In IRL, thank you, Carl. Okay, so we want to get some sandpaper up in that ball joint socket to make sure we get all the loose rust out before we get that new ball joint installed, so it installs nice and easy. Got the hole all cleaned out. Little dab of anti-seize in there, gob it up, keep it from sticking next time we need to remove it, though I hope we never have to again. Old rotten bolt, also anti-seize. Stop that from breaking. Not fun. Get the ball joint, get her up in there, and we'll tighten it down to manufacturer spec, which I believe Subaru calls for 3 Uggadugas. Torqued. So we've got the control arm off, we've got it in the press, and what we're going to have to do now is press out that vertical hockey puck control arm bushing. So we're going to force it out, get that rubber portion to pop out, and get the socket a little bit stuck. So get the hammer, give it a little bit of love. There we are. Now what we've got still left in the control arm is that steel sleeve. So to get the steel sleeve out, we can either try and get it to the press, or we're going to go back to our trusty old air hammer, get a nice chisel bit on it, and what we're going to do is get that on the edge of that bushing race. We'll get that chipped out of there, and then we'll be able to press the brand new bushing in. So air hammer away, get that whole thing out. There we go. Now we're going to get the new bushing installed, press that right in there, and that's a great tight fit. It looks amazing. Control arm bushing successfully pressed in. Now we just got to put in the insert, and we can get this guy up in the car. We're going to slide the provided washer over the stud. The control arm bushing up. I have it backwards. So install the control arm correctly by putting the washer over the stud. I can't see the other end. Okay, so we're going to start by putting the ball joint in correctly. So orient your arm to the correct, yeah, it's upside down again. Okay, so this way. So we're going to work in reverse order, get the control arm up over the ball joint stud, and we'll just get the nut started, and that's going to hold our control arm in place. Got our stud for the rear control arm. Just slip one of the provided Whiteline washers over it. Good. That goes up there. How is that not fitting now? Okay, change of plans. This goes in first. Come on. I hate everything. Like, why do I even bother working on cars? Such a pain. I took that off first, then I pulled this out. Why is this not moving? Correct. This goes here. This goes here. Give this a little bit of love. Plate.
Plate first.
Plate this thing. Hopefully I have enough threads. All right, just enough threads. So hopefully this is not cross-threaded.
If I were your look, so what?
Yeah, it's a good. Nug. Nug. Send. 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 All right, installed. Thumbs up for something. I'm having fun. This is definitely not awful. See, this is the part, car modifying, that gives you the least amount of satisfaction. In that, this is not flashy. There is no visual gain to any of this afterwards. This is purely to correct an inherent problem with other modification. This is the equivalent to vehicle maintenance, which is the worst kind of working on a car. Improving something, good. Fixing something because it's broken, terrible. So I don't eat something in the face. The worst thing you want is to eat anything in the face. Okay, so we've got our ridiculously long wobble extension. That's probably unnecessary, but I didn't want to get a smaller socket. We've got our 17 mil wrench. TIT tight. Move on to the lower ball joint, and this side is ready to go back together. And by ready to go back together, I mean it is back together. Crap. What a disaster. There's just stuff everywhere. Ever important cotter pin. Ah, crap. I did forget about the sway bar link. So it's not done. And because this hole's too tight, installing cotter pins generally does not require a hammer. And last but not least, use sway bar link. Now, I have no idea what I did with the nut for this. Okay, tighten out the bottom of the link. I'm surprised that actually tightened up without spinning. All right, this side's done. We're gonna set the camera up for a time lapse. We're gonna rip the other side, and let's see how this thing drives. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. There's no survivors, just dip scattered all over the place. Alright, so we've got the tie rods, ball joints in that roll adjustment kit installed in the vehicle. We've got those new Whiteline lower control arm bushings. This is going to make this car handle absolutely like it's on rails. I couldn't be more excited to finally get this thing out on the road and test how the handling abilities have changed from the original floaty, worn out suspension on it. Now, we've got a couple more things that we're going to be replacing on it. We'll be looking into upgrading the rear sway bar and a strut bar as well to complete the handling package on our Forester. Now, after all that's complete, we will have to get this vehicle sent out for alignment because we have a bunch of alignment angles that we've changed and messed with since installing all those suspension points. But this is a kit that's relatively easy to install with basic tools. Control arm bushing is a little harder, but the roll adjustment kit itself, not a bad kit to install. A definite must if you're going to change the geometry on any Subaru. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to watch me today. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the video. I mean, if you've made it to this far, you've got to be enjoying what you see. So please hit the bell button for notifications, like and subscribe us, and remember, all of the music that you hear in these videos is a DJ Smokey exclusive. Remember to check them out on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Logo here, suggested video here. Logo here, suggested video here. Logo here, suggested video here. And I'm out.
Goodbye.